Brothers and sisters, what is going on, everybody? This is Steel Sermon in the House, Sunday evening with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link in the description below. So in a follow-up to the video that I put out yesterday with me coming out of my fandom as a Chicago Bulls fan, I said that I would try and make more Bulls content. So I figured I'd start and talk about my general thoughts about head coach Billy Donovan. Now, the thing about Billy Donovan, the general consensus with Bulls fans and Billy Donovan is that he sucks and that he's not a true winner and that he's not the right fit in Chicago. Well, I'm going to come on. While I do respect people's opinions of him and I do think that he's not a perfect coach, I'm just going to come on and talk about my general thoughts based on what I have seen, based on the highlights that I've seen, based on podcasts I've listened to, and I think I've been able to come to a conclusion. So let's just start off with it. The Bulls took Billy Donovan to help mold the club back into a winner, kind of like what the Bulls did with Tom Thibodeau back in the day. And he had a good run in Oklahoma City, if you remember, when he had those really good Thunder teams. And he had a winning record in each of his first 5 seasons there, but he didn't really have any playoff success. And I think that's been a big standard of success for Chicago because, you know, we got all them championships, winning 6 championships in the 90s. Could have been 8 straight if Michael Jordan never retired. And after the 93 finals, I believe it was. But yeah, I mean, you win 6 championships in a decade, you're going to have high expectations of your team moving forward back then. So I think that's a red flag right there for Billy Donovan, not really having any playoff success. But then again, that has to do with a lot of the teams that the Thunder played. And while the Thunder are rebuilding right now, the Bulls appear to be on the uprise, and they're getting ready to be competitive again with 3 big stars in Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola. I can't pronounce that guy's last name. At least not yet. I'm going to have to watch some games. But you get it. You know, we have some guys that we are building around. And now, of course, we got Lonzo Ball, who's been a heavy target for us. And after a great start in 2022 for the Bulls, before being set back by getting hit with the injury bug to the top players, kind of took a little bit of a downturn from there, and it caused us to have a little bit of an underwhelming season from the start. But still, you win 46 games in that season, you make the playoffs. No success right there. And the group was hit really big with the injury bug, and that's why the Bulls were kind of, you know, mediocre for 2023. But I feel like if this is the right team that Billy Donovan is supposed to have, I feel like he's really not that bad of a hiring, and people are just, you know, pointing fingers at that this guy is he's not Phil Jackson, or, you know, Zach LaVine's not Michael Jordan, or Rosen's not Pippen, or whatever. You know, that's just what the consensus is in Chicago. So, like, you look at Billy Donovan's lack of playoff success and you're attributing that to what he has in Chicago. You get a guy like Lonzo Ball, as I mentioned. I think that's a big part of what Billy Donovan has to work with. He's accustomed to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook down in Oklahoma City for the majority of his career. Then you also got to take a look at what Tom Thibodeau did. I mean, Tom Thibodeau kind of walked into a similar situation when the Bulls first hired him. He had to work with a lot of backups before he got the really good teams that he got in the early 2010s. So that kind of leaves the question, is this the right roster and the perfect roster that Billy Donovan's acquiring as head coach? Well, like I said, there are the injury excuses, there are the injury issues, and there are moments where he does shine, and there are moments where he's lackluster. You know, my main point that I'm trying to make with Billy Donovan is he's not perfect, but he's not terrible as well. It's got to come down to how he uses his players and how you got to bring about Zach LaVine with his potential. A lot of Chicago Bulls fans, I don't understand why they're saying this, that they want Zach LaVine gone. I mean, why do you want Zach LaVine gone? He's been a big contributor to the Bulls pretty much ever since he came over to Chicago. I can't say over here because I don't live in Chicago. You got Vooch, who's, developed into a really good passer. And I think it just comes down to the development of those key guys right there. Also, you got to figure if Pat Williams can step up and be more aggressive in the court, in the backcourt. It just comes down to basic development is what I'm trying to say with Billy Donovan. And I think that's what tested a lot of patience with Bulls fans, I really think that he has acquired a good enough roster to be competitive. I think it comes down to health as well, because like I said, the injury issues have really been a big factor as why the Bulls, were worse than what they really could have been this previous season, And he's been getting a lot of praise, especially from a guy like DeMar DeRozan. I mean, I know DeMar DeRozan isn't like, super, super clutch when it comes to the playoffs. I know DeMar DeRozan, from the Toronto Raptors and the Spurs, he kind of, went ghost in the playoffs. But still, like, when a guy like DeMar DeRozan is given praise to him, and he's talking about how he has a good basketball IQ, that's got to count for something when it comes to the coach. Then again, you can just chop that down to, well, it's a player talking about his head coach. He's got to say all the right things so he looks good. But I've seen plenty of instances where there have been ex-players, not just with the Bulls, but in the NBA in general, sports in general, where ex-players, current players have badmouthed their coach. I kind of think Billy Donovan's a little bit underrated, and I kind of think that he's a little underappreciated. And to me, it kind of seems like that he's pretty easygoing. He's really locked in the game. You can tell that he knows what he's doing on the court, obviously. It's not like we're talking about some kind of scrub that just sits on the bench and acts like a head coach. And it's the play calling schemes that puts a lot into the game that many people don't see, in my opinion, Kind of like the Tom Thibodeau days, It's a really good praise from current players on the team. And that's just why, if you look, and I'm just saying this is what DeMar DeRozan was saying to Billy Donovan, by the way. He's also come out and said that it's easy to criticize someone when we don't execute or make it go out there. But his IQ for the game is definitely there. And he really is kind of like an old school kind of guy when it comes to the court. He doesn't have an ego, and I just don't think that's why many of the fan base has been all in on him, because he's not self-promoted, and he doesn't really have an over-the-top personality, and a lot of the emotion has been behind closed doors for Billy Donovan. But I mean, still, it comes down to ownership and what the front office saw enough in Donovan in his first 2 seasons with Chicago to give him a contract extension. And that extension, I know, didn't really sit well with the fans, at least the vast majority of them, because like I said at the beginning, the general consensus in Chicago that this guy sucks. But there's a couple of things, like I said, that people are tending to overlook, okay? First of all, like I said with the injuries, but you got to take consideration Lonzo Ball for the past 1.5 seasons injured. Same can be said with DeMar DeRozan. Same can be said with Zach LaVine. Same can be said with Nikola. Not exactly defensive stoppers, but they're playing respectable defense in a high-scoring affair in today's league. And Billy Donovan kind of was handed a flawed roster, and the Bulls lack outside shooting and rim protection. And before a guy like Patrick Beverley arrived, I'm not a big fan of Patrick Beverley, I never really was. there wasn't really much of a will to run through an opposing screen and put an opponent on the ground. You know? And Billy Donovan has them playing more to an identity. At least that's what he's making it out to be. You know, with me, like, the very worst that a team can do for me in any sport is go out there and look bored or look uninterested and look soft, not be competitive. Billy Donovan has these guys tough, and he has them being competitive. You know, it's not like the Bulls are playing down to competition every single game, and it's not like they're, you know, being outplayed 99.99% of the time. There are going to be times where you run into buzzsaws like, you know, the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Phoenix Suns or the Denver Nuggets. You're going to run into some really good teams down the line. They're going to absolutely hand you your ass, you know. But more often than not, I see a head coach who goes on the court and his players give a good representation of the kind of guy that he is. He's tough, he's old school, he's not really emotional, at least not over the top emotional, and he has a competitive fighting spirit. And that needs to be Billy Donovan's next step with Chicago. And it's shown that he can coach guys into doing things outside their comfort zone. And I think once he gets the hang of that with playing more aggressive defense, when he figures out, you know, the points in the paint problem and the rim protection problem, I think that's going to lead to more wins. The bottom line of everything is what I'm trying to say about Billy Donovan. I don't love him as a head coach, but I don't think he really has been getting enough of a fair chance in just 2 seasons as head coach of the Chicago Bulls. I think he's been getting a lot of unfair criticism that are things that are beyond his control. He can't control if players get injured. He can't control if, you know, something happens that's beyond his control. And I think if, you know, I'm sitting down here after season 3 or even season 4, then I think a little more criticism would be warranted. But I don't think we've got to see the whole thing when it comes to Billy Donovan quite yet. And that's my honest opinion of him. Bulls fans, let me know what you think down in the comments below. NBA fans, let me know what you think down in the comments below. This is Steel Sermon, Chicago Bulls edition Steel Sermon, and I'm checking on out for the day. May God be with you all.